No one in the fertility space has a crystal ball, as much as I wish we did. Because if working in the fertility industry has taught me anything, it is that there are no guarantees. Nothing a doctor says, not even the perfect embryo under the perfect conditions, can guarantee an outcome. But after years of working with women through infertility, IVF, unexplained infertility, pregnancy loss, secondary infertility, all of it, I've started to notice patterns. Patterns in the way that these women think, patterns in the way that they relate to their bodies, and patterns in the way that they handle things like hope and fear and control, disappointment and uncertainty. And what's really interesting is that sometimes the biggest shift doesn't happen when they find that ideal doctor or switch up their diet or find the perfect protocol. It happens internally. Something changes in the way that they move through their journey. So today I want to share the things that I see over and over again in the women who get pregnant against all the odds. Not because I want you to turn these into another fertility checklist, but because you might recognize yourself in some of them and at least realize that there is a shift that you are ready to make.
Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your time and your energy with me today. Now, we were meant to have an interview today with the beautiful Catherine Lazar, who has had to postpone our chat for many reasons that I'm sure she will be sharing on her social media over the next couple of weeks. So my apologies. Stay tuned for that beautiful conversation, which will be coming as soon as possible. But that gives me an opportunity today to dive into an episode that I've been putting together for a while. And I'm really excited about this one because this episode is about something that I get asked a lot. And it's also a question that I tend to ask a lot of the guests that I have here on the podcast. You know, I bring in a lot of my former students or current students who, against all the odds, have had these incredible outcomes on their own fertility journeys because it is the question that everyone seems to want to know. The month that you finally fell pregnant, what did you do differently? The month that I actually fell pregnant with my son on my very long second journey of infertility was far from perfect. The previous month, the month before I fell pregnant, I had one of those months where everything was so beautifully aligned. It just felt like the stars had come together. Is that the saying? I had ovulated right in the middle of my cycle, which was very unusual for me at that time. My hormones felt so beautifully balanced. Like I didn't have any PMS. I didn't have any weird symptoms going on. My husband and I had been getting along beautifully. Like as many of us know, this journey takes so much from your relationship. But we just had one of those months where I think we'd gone away together for a couple of days and things just felt so romantic and so in sync. And I just had all these like signs from my spirit baby. And I was like, this is the month. But it wasn't. And I was really shocked that month. I was like, but how can I get all of these synchronicities going? How can I have been so sure? But it wasn't that I got it wrong. It's that I got the timing wrong. Because the next month, I had one of those months that was a bit of a disaster on paper. I think I ovulated on day 9 to the point where I'd pretty much written off the cycle completely. I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to get pregnant ovulating on day 9. Like that's way too early without going into any gory details. It was not a romantic month at all. It was difficult. It was not fun. As again, you can probably relate to some months, you just kind of got to get it done. And I thought, I'm not in a great space. I'm not feeling any of those synchronicities. I'm like, well, this cycle is a write-off. Yet that is the cycle that I fell pregnant. And there are so many symmetries with that story and the things that I want to go through today. Now, I want you to please note before we get into this episode, this is an observation. This is not a prescription. This is not again, like a list of you've got to do this, you've got to do that, because it may not all be stuff that you want to hear, because I didn't want to hear it. A lot of these things that I'm going to go through were things that I was like, no, I'm already doing everything perfectly. I don't want to even consider doing things a different way, because it is really impossible for our brains to consider that the way we've been doing things for so long might not be the answer. We get into this like sunk cost fallacy. It's like, well, I've already put in so much work, so much time, effort, energy, money, all the things. Well, that all has to be for something. But unfortunately, that is not exactly how it works. And when you have been in survival mode for so long, your brain's actually thinking that it's doing a really good job because you have survived. So it thinks that it needs to keep you in that space. So I want to help you get out of that a little bit today. I want to give you a reframe, another way to think about your journey. And again, this isn't just anecdotal in terms of my journey. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of women now from all over the world over the last few years. And it is what I see that they have in common, that you see over and over again. And the fact that I see women with like completely different medical situations and different diagnoses seem to get pregnant when they have these things in common. Some go through IVF, some conceive naturally, some have unexplained infertility, some have been trying for years, have all sorts of diagnoses. So it's not like there's one common medical denominator here. What I've really decided that I wanted to look at when putting this episode together today was patterns in this internal experience and patterns in behavior. So please don't listen to this episode and turn it into another list of things that you're doing wrong, because please, if you are a new listener here, that is not my vibe whatsoever. This isn't also a list of like, oh, well, they just started taking this supplement or they started the magical fertility diet. And this isn't anything like that. It is a list of 8 things that are far more about the internal shift. And the entire purpose of this episode is to show you what you can do to make your whole life feel easier as you get closer to bringing home your baby. So let's go. I'm going to start number 1 here with something that I brought up in a recent episode, and that is they stop making fertility the center of their whole identity. And this is such a big one, and it's a difficult one as well. And the recent episode I did around this identity of, well, I am this person who is struggling to conceive, I'm sure that so many of us can relate to, because fertility slowly consumes everything. All conversations that you have tend to come back around to fertility. Every week resolves around appointments or what waiting stage you're on or what I'm looking out for. Am I symptom spotting? Am I waiting for ovulation? Every social event is assessed through this lens of potential pregnancy. It's like, can I eat at this restaurant? Do I want to be around these people who are going to question why I'm not drinking? Do I have energy for those people with insensitive comments for today? Like, your whole identity becomes this woman trying to have a baby. And you stop asking yourself, what do I actually want? What actually makes me feel alive? Who am I outside of this? Who was I before all of this started and took over my entire life? The women I see who are able to shift this, they start reconnecting with themselves again, asking things like, well, what do I want? And no, not because I have to do this or I have to do this perfectly every single day because it's going to help my fertility. It's more about, well, what do I want my life to look like at this time? They start to make plans again, stuff that they look forward to. They let themselves laugh again. They have interests that have nothing to do with fertility. And they allow themselves to experience moments of joy without feeling like they're jinxing anything. And I think when you start trying to shift your identity, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to stop trying. And no, you don't ever stop trying and you don't ever stop wanting your baby, but you stop abandoning yourself while you wait for them. And this isn't just about, oh, relax and you'll get pregnant. Absolutely not. It's about reclaiming your life while you're waiting, because I say this all the time. If you are going through this journey and it's been months, years by this stage, this time is going to keep passing anyway. you are not going to get this time back. So maybe, just maybe, there is a different way. Number 2 on my list is they stop trying to control every single variable. And I said this to one of my students this week. I don't know whether I tend to attract a lot of very type A people because that's who I am. And that's certainly who I was on this journey. I don't know. That's a question for another day. But I do tend to end up with a lot of students who do kind of fall into that like very type A. Just want to know I'm doing things right. Like give me the list, give me the instructions, I'll do it all. And last week I did an episode around this energy of trying when you are trying to conceive versus the energy of receiving while you're trying to conceive. And that conversation, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it because it really goes into a bit more detail on this next point. But when you are tracking everything, you are Googling, AIing every symptom, you're analyzing cervical mucus, testing ridiculously early, researching and scrolling at 11 p.m., trying to optimize every meal and constantly asking yourself, what if this is the thing that's stopping me from getting pregnant? What if it's this half a glass of wine or this piece of cheesecake? Your nervous system can become really obsessed with certainty. But your fertility journey, as I'm sure you have realized well before this point, contains an enormous amount of uncertainty. And the shift that I notice with the women who are able to get out of this energy of controlling everything, it isn't, I don't care anymore. It's, I am doing what I can, and I don't need to obsess over every tiny part of this process. So you move from this trying energy of pushing, of monitoring, of analyzing, of grasping, forcing, searching, what else can I do? And you drop into this receiving energy, listening to your body, allowing, responding rather than reacting to what is there, trusting and being present. And instead asking yourself, what do I need? Not what does my fertility dictate or what am I supposed to be doing, but what do I need? And again, receiving isn't about sitting on the couch waiting for your baby to magically arrive while you do nothing. It means that you stop believing that more effort always equals more control. Aligned action, great. Doing what your doctor suggested, trusting your medical team, looking after your body, doing what you need so you feel good in your own skin. All of this stuff, great. But then trusting that that is enough, that you are already doing more than enough. Number 3, and this is one of my favorite ones. I think this is a very overlooked and very simple part of this journey, is that women who tend to conceive that I see above all of the odds is that they allow themselves to feel the emotions of what they are going through instead of constantly trying to get rid of them. And this is something that we don't want to do. We often fall into this trap of, and we hear it so often, right? We hear it from others like, I just need to stay positive. I can't stress. I need to believe it's going to happen. I shouldn't be jealous. I need to manifest properly. And then suddenly you're not only dealing with the fertility troubles that you've already got, but now you're dealing with the guilt about having feelings about infertility. You end up stressing about being stressed, which sounds ridiculous when you lay it out like that, right? But I say this to my students all the time. We have to be here for all of it, to feel all of it. And I give the women that I work with the space and the time at the start of every practice that we do to allow what emotions are present to be there. So whether it's today I feel devastated, I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm scared, I'm hopeful, I'm exhausted. All of these things can coexist. And they can sit there alongside some of the good stuff too. You know, other days you might say, I feel excited, I feel calm, I feel ready. But it's when we tend to push things away and we put our hands over our ears, we're like, la, 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 la. That is where you do yourself a disservice, because these quote unquote bad emotions or these things these are difficult to feel, they're hard to acknowledge. But when you push them away, those emotions will keep coming back stronger. And I get it, right? We don't want to feel the hard stuff. No one does. But when you name it, when you allow it and you accept it, you don't have to like it, but you accept how you feel. This is where those emotions lose their hold over you. They lose their ability to dysregulate you, to keep your nervous system stuck in fight or flight. Because feeling things like fear don't mean that you're going to manifest a negative outcome. Can you imagine if we were that powerful? Like every time you thought about something bad happened, it actually happened. Like, come on. Feeling angry doesn't mean that you are blocking a pregnancy, and having a bad day doesn't mean that you are sabotaging your fertility. Regulation is not the absence of emotions, because that is another state of dysregulation that we know of, the dorsal state, where you no longer feel anything. Regulation is about the ability to experience all those emotions without being completely consumed by them. Okay, number 4. The women who I see conceiving against all the odds, they stop constantly looking outside themselves for the next answer. And this is a really tough one because sometimes we need the doctors, right? Like we need the treatment. So much of infertility is a medical condition. But the problem becomes when you hand over your body to every doctor, practitioner, or every test result, expecting endless supplements to be like this magic cure. It is when you look absolutely everywhere else for the answers, except yourself, except within, that you begin to do yourself a huge disservice. Because this endless search, when it's always about something else, you are looking to another expert, another supplement, another fancy test or practitioner or protocol. You're looking for other people's success stories that feel similar to yours. You're like, okay, well, they did it. They got the outcome. Their journey looked like mine. What did they do? And that information initially, I understand, can feel really empowering because you're like, okay, well, there is stuff I can do to help my fertility. But eventually, when you do all of that and it doesn't work, that becomes yet another form of anxiety. Because I see so many women who have done all of that, and I was one of them like 100 times over, right? On paper, you do everything perfectly, but it still doesn't work. Where do you go from there? So the shift for this is I don't need to know everything before I can feel okay. You don't need to know exactly what the outcome is going to be, when, where, how. But instead, you start asking yourself, what do I actually need? What do I need right now? Does this next cycle that my doctor is telling me to do, does it have to happen now? Is my body screaming at me for a break? Things like that. And, asking what is everyone else doing and what is the thing that everybody else is talking about doesn't always mean it is the right thing for you. And being able to ask yourself, tap into what is your intuition telling you? And doctors are not always going to get it right, okay? I genuinely believe that most of the doctors out there, they want to get you pregnant as quickly as they can, but they don't always get it right. I mean, I was told at 34 that I had gone through early menopause. Fast forward 10 years, I now still have a more regular cycle each month than I did then. So it is never the wrong time to check in with your body and what you actually want, how you actually feel. And does something not feel aligned? Yes, these doctors have so much experience and, there's every person and their dog on social media telling you what their expert advice is. But does that feel like the best course of action for you or the best next step on your journey? Because sometimes the most empowering thing is not about finding another answer. It is learning to trust your own discernment. Number 5 that I have on my list here is they stop making every month mean something about their future. For example, you get a negative test. You think, well, this isn't working. It's never going to work. Your period comes. It's like, well, it's never going to happen. There's something wrong with me. I'm broken. Another unsuccessful cycle is I'm running out of time. I've used all my good eggs. Why am I even bothering? I'm too old. You see someone else who gets pregnant. You think everyone is moving on except me. And your brain and your nervous system always wants predictability and certainty. Your brain loves to turn one moment into a prediction of what is going to happen in the future. That is a survival mechanism. And that is something that is very hard to override. I get that. But A negative pregnancy test is information. It's information about this cycle. It is not necessarily a guarantee about your entire future. An IVF cycle that doesn't go the way that we wanted to, doesn't give us the outcome we hope for, that's an experience. It's not a definition of what is going to happen next time. A diagnosis is information. Nothing and none of this is a guarantee of what is possible for you. Because every single person who struggled for so long to have their family throughout all of this, all of those same women had those thoughts of, it's never going to happen, until it did. And I know how hard it is to turn away from the 3D and the reality of where you are. And you've got this doctor handing over these test results and giving you statistics. You only have to listen to some of the women that I have interviewed on this podcast to know that you are not a statistic. You are not dictated by what has happened in the past. Because the ones who finally let go of this, they learn to stop turning a moment into meaning about the future. They are the ones who see things shift. All right. I have 3 more that I have on this list. Okay. These 3 are the best. See, these are all good. I love talking about this stuff. Number 6 that I have here is they let themselves want their baby without being tied to a timeline. Oh, the timing is the actual worst on this journey, because telling someone, just surrender, just let go of the when, just focus on the what, just trust that your baby is on the way, can really be incredibly invalidating. And especially when you're going through something as high stakes as IVF, where there is a very specific timeline of things that need to happen, right? But I want you to hear this part. This shift here is not, I don't care if I have a baby. It's, I can deeply desire this without making myself feel unsafe every time I don't get it yet. So what I mean by that is you get so attached to this, the when, and knowing, and I'm trying to control the outcome, that you leave out any possibility for another way forward. So we can talk about, the wanting and the longing and hoping and dreaming for our baby, but can we do that without being attached to, well, it has to happen by this time? That is the really, really hard part that I think so many of us struggle with. And it's the ones who are able to find a way to say, I'm okay with this happening at a point in time that I don't know yet, that I can't control. And no, you don't stop trying in the meantime. You keep taking the aligned action, everything that we've spoken about. But can you get to a point where you say, whether this happens next month, in 6 months, in 12 months, I'm okay with that. And this might be the most powerful point that I make in this whole episode. It was the biggest shift that I made with regards to bringing my baby home, when I was able to say, I've been holding on to this timeline. Maybe you don't even consciously realizing that you're doing it. But the ones who get to this place who can trust that what they want is on the way without it being attached to the when, they get there every single time. And that's going to take a lot of self-reflection and asking yourself, well, if it doesn't happen by this date, am I okay with that? What meaning am I attaching to the fact that I won't have my baby by this date? And what if it is in another year from now? I can guarantee you that every woman who gets to the end of this journey with the family that they've dreamed about, they don't look back and say, I really wish it had sort of happened in this sort of time frame. No, they say, this felt like the way it was always meant to be. Number 7, and this is obviously one that I speak about a lot, is they start relating to their body differently. So how often do you, without you maybe even realizing it, say to yourself, my body is failing me. I'm broken. What is wrong with me? Why does that person get Macca's drive-through every week on their way home from work and I do everything perfectly and it just doesn't happen? We do it unconsciously. Every time you compare yourself to someone else, every time you say, well, what else can I do? What more could I possibly throw at this journey? But what if you could reframe it to not what is wrong with me, but to what is my body trying to communicate with me? And not pretending that everything is perfect, not ignoring any medical information or anything that we need to be addressing, but moving away from fighting your body, from criticizing yourself, from distrusting every sensation and this idea of feeling really betrayed by our bodies. And instead being able to listen, to notice, breathing, softening, and just creating these moments of safety. I feel like fertility treatments can make you feel like your body has become a project. You become this guinea pig, and I totally get that. I did not even recognize myself when I was going through IVF. My clothes didn't fit me anymore. I was so bloated. I was bruised. I felt physically weak. For someone who had always loved exercise and God, my whole job was about being strong and healthy, right? This was so, so confronting. And I fought my body so much throughout my entire fertility journey until the end, where I was somehow able to shift things, which is what I'm speaking about now. And I remember one day, this beautiful yoga teacher that I'd started working with, she said, well, what does your body actually need? Are you actually in touch with what your body needs? And I was like, well, of course I am. I'm absolutely in touch with my body. I was an athlete growing up. I'm very aware of how much I can lift, how far I can run. And when I stopped to think about it, I realized that my whole life, my relationship with my body had been around, well, what can I achieve? What can my body do for me? If I do this, my body will give me that. If I train a certain amount of weight, if I eat a certain way, my body will do this and look like this and give me that. But at no point in my life had I ever stopped to say, well, what is my body trying to tell me? Until I was a broken mess throughout all of my infertility journey. I did everything perfectly and my body still hadn't worked. I had chronic insomnia. I relied on tablets to get to sleep every night. So what I would love for you to do is to be able to shift out of this, what is wrong with me, and start treating your body the way that you would your baby, tenderly. Nurture her. Ask, what does she need? What feels good? And what messages is she trying to communicate? Because honestly, if you can get into this relationship with your body now, this will serve you for the rest of your life. Now, the last one I have on my list here is, this is the one I really wanted to leave you with and to finish up with. The women who I see overcoming their fertility journeys against all the odds is that they become more open to life being different from how they imagined it. And like I said before, this doesn't mean about giving up. It just means releasing that incredibly rigid picture of it has to happen this way. And, I remember years and years ago, I was like, God, I would never do IVF. Oh, I've seen what it does to people. I would never do that. But maybe if you are in that boat and you just think, gosh, I would never consider that, whether it is IVF, whether it's donor conception, whether it's a different timeline, a different number of children, a different birth story, or just a different path entirely. Acceptance is not the same as letting go of your desire and what you want. Sometimes acceptance simply means, I don't know exactly how this story is going to unfold, and being okay with living without needing to know the answer today. And I spoke about this on a call with my fertility students earlier this week. When you address these scary thoughts, these scary possibilities that we pushed at the back of our mind, we're like, I don't want to consider that. I don't want to go there. That's too hard for me to get my head around. The things that we don't want to consider, those scary things are like a big wall. They're this big mental, emotional block where your nervous system gets dysregulated every time you come up against that wall. But when you consider them, and it doesn't mean to say, this is what I want, this is what I'm manifesting. But if you stop and say, I've considered that my journey might look like this. And you know what? I survived. When you start teaching your brain and your nervous system that these scary eventualities are possible and that you are actually okay, they lose their hold over you. Because when you come back up against them, it's not this big wall. Your nervous system doesn't get dysregulated by this huge scary thing in front of you. It just softens it. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It means that you stay more grounded and regulated in your body, even whilst considering them. And like I mentioned, I don't know a single person who has had their family in an unconventional way who's ever going to say, oh, I really regret that. Like, not one. Every single one of them will tell you that looking back now, they couldn't imagine their lives happening any other way. I feel like this has been a big episode. I feel like each of these points could have been a whole episode in themselves. Maybe we'll come back and do like a bigger series on mindset shifts. And I think these things are really powerful and really important. But as we're finishing up, I just want to invite you to go a little deeper into some of these points and maybe some things that you want to journal on today to help kind of open up this conversation with your own thoughts and your own body. You can ask yourself things like, where am I gripping or trying to hold on and control everything right now? Where am I abandoning myself? Where am I asking for certainty that isn't available? Where am I making this mean something about myself or my entire future? And what would it look like to come back to yourself today, even while you still desperately want your baby? Because the goal is never to become perfect in order to get pregnant. Maybe the work here is becoming the person who is going to stay connected to herself, whatever happens next. Because I promise you that will serve you well beyond this chapter. So thank you for being here. I hope that you have found this episode helpful. I would love to hear from you. Please always feel free to reach out, DM me, email me. I read all of your messages. You can send me a voice note. I love listening to those as well. Now, next week on the podcast, we are going to go deeper into this kind of line of thinking, and we're going to speak about harnessing the power of your subconscious on your fertility journey. This is where we get a little bit more geeky into the neuroscience side of things, and we weave in some of that beautiful blend of spirituality on top, which is, I know, where that like just magical balance tends to happen. So I cannot wait to have you back for next week's episode. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in here today. But until then, I am sending you all of my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility.
The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.